All right, hey, we are live. We're just gonna waste no time and get right to it and bring Fred from Carnifex on.
What's up, Dustin?
Fred, how you doing, man?
Pretty good.
Hey, thank you for taking the time today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so y'all have a new record coming out, I understand.
Yep, October 6th.
It's
Got the
called
band together.
Necromantium.
Yep, on Nuclear Blast Records.
Awesome. I listened to the single the other night, and it's heavy.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. Um, so I guess talk a little bit. I know that you weren't in the band when they kind of started, but I like to ask for the origin story. So, I mean, just tell me a little bit about your history, how you got into the band, and all that kind. Whatever, however deep you want to go there.
So I was after high school, I joined a post-hardcore band because a friend of mine from high school told me the bass player wasn't showing up, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And then that's how I met Sean. So we were both in this band, and from 2003 to 2005, we were playing shows in North County, San Diego, Temecula, and Riverside. And then when we both got fed up, we went our separate ways and started our own bands. He ended up joining Carnifex eventually, and then I was in this other band, and we would cross paths and play shows together and see each other at other shows, promoting shows that we were playing. And then when Carnifex got signed into Victory Records, that's when he hit me up and he's like, "Hey, this guy's not working out, and I want you to join." I was like, "Well, first he asked, like, you still in that band?" And I was like, "No, we kind of all went our separate ways as well. We ran its course, and then I was in school, and then he's like, "Hey, we just got signed, and we need someone that can play and write, and I know you can play." And I was like, "Okay, yeah." So then that's when I joined in 2007.
Yeah, so you guys have been at it for a long time.
Yeah. So Carnifex has been at it since 2005, and then I've been playing in bands since I want to say 99
Oh
was my
wow,
first band, but then I've been playing music since like sixth grade.
that's awesome. What would you say are some of your influences? Like, what are some of the bands that kind of inspired you to get into heavy music?
Oh, heavy music, I guess originally was a friend of mine. We were like trading CDs. Remember back, like, I don't know how old you are, but back in the day, I'd always burn copies of my CDs and then put them in
Oh
a
yeah,
little sleeve. So that way I wouldn't have to worry about scratching my CDs. But then we would trade our booklets. And my buddy Marshall in high school was like, "Here, take mine." And the first CD in his booklet was Countdown to Extinction from Megadeth. And that was like,
ah,
bam, that was it. I was like, "Oh man, this," because I grew up listening to like skate punk, and so that was the big transition to metal.
oh wow. What kind of skate punk bands?
Like Pennywise, Descendants. I
Okay,
grew up like really heavy, like listening to Green Day first.
yeah,
And then,
yeah.
like
All those bands are good.
yeah.
Suicidal Tendencies.
Yep. I think more along the lines of uh like I'm trying to think more because I'm blanking, but like No Use for a Name and Face to Face.
Yeah, there's a lot of those bands. I mean, I grew up probably in the same era that you did, like
Yes.
pretty much 90s and 80s and 90s, but maybe I might be a little bit older than you, but
I had to go backwards. That's what, like, listening to music. The more I went further, I was like, well, I also want to see what I missed out on. So then I got into like when 90s hardcore was showing up. I was like, well, I want to hear all the 80s hardcore. So I went back that way, listen to all those.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm wearing I don't know if you've ever heard of Modern Life is War.
I'm wearing it too.
Oh,
That's
fuck.
funny.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
What are
A
the
friend of mine,
chances, man?
I was in a thrash band for a hot minute, and the vocalist introduced me to these guys. And then when they reunited, they played a place by us called the Shea Cafe, and we went, and it was insane.
Man, that's the band that I want to see so bad. And it's
Yeah.
so funny too. Like we've talked to bands. We talked to this band that's based in Iowa the other day, and I was like, "Oh, Modern Life is War," and the guy's like, "No, never heard of them."
Yeah, because they're from Marshalltown. So he's like, he doesn't know what
Yeah.
Marshalltown is. No, they're so sick. I can't stop listening to Fever Hunting, and my favorite record's Witness.
Yes. We did a top 10. Joey and I did our top 10 records of the 2000s, and yeah, my number one was Witness. And the Fever Hunting record is so good. Like, there's some of my favorite songs, "Find a Way" and "Media Cunt" on there.
Yeah,
Oh man, that record is so great too.
that's
And now
cool.
they're not doing anything because their drummer has like cancer or something.
Yeah. He's health scares, man.
Have you ever met them?
I never met them. I'm not kind of one. I kind of like. I like seeing people, but I don't want to talk to them. I follow heroes kind of thing. I
Yeah.
was stoked to actually see them on stage because my buddy Johnny showed me them. They had already, I think it was like the tail end of them breaking up and disbanding, and I was like, oh, that sucks. So I was just stoked to at least see them on stage. So I didn't want to go like, hey, what's up? And plus, they're like Shea Cafe is so small, so it was like I literally could touch them, but I was like, nah, I'm gonna leave them alone. Like I just want to see them play, and then I'm satisfied.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally understand. That's such a trip. That's fucking cool. Um, so what other kind of stuff do you like? I guess another question I'd like to ask is like on the scene currently, are there bands that you guys love that you like to tour with? I would imagine you guys know bands like Suicide Silence that are kind of out from that same kind of general part of California you are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Ingested, that's one of those bands that we always love touring with. We met those guys in 2010. Dahlia is a band that we wish we could tour with more, but like, we understand like the cycle. We toured with those guys twice now. Another band that we just recently started touring with, and they just came through town, Left to Suffer. I like to see
Oh
those guys
yeah.
some more. One more. What's another band that's fun? Oh, we're touring with. Oh, I can't say that. There's a band that's on our list that we've crossed paths at festivals that we've been trying to tour with forever, and we finally got them nailed down for next year.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know that you can't like the ink's not dry yet. So
Yeah. So
I
like
get that.
we're friends with these guys, and we've known them forever. And it's like, and it's funny, when I first joined Carnifex, that was one of the influences. Like, you got to listen to this band. I never heard of them, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then eventually we became friends with them, and I was like, we got to tour with them. And of course, the powers that be, just nothing lined up. Even when we were like actively trying to make it happen, it still didn't happen.
Yeah. That's shitty.
But
Well, the
well,
last couple of years of what's that?
it finally happened. It's happening next year.
Yeah, the last couple of years were like a aberration anyway,
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
whole pandemic and stuff. How much of the like when you guys wrote your new album, like how much of the writing are you involved in? Is that a process that you guys get together in a room and you do the writing, or do you kind of each submit parts, or like how does that work?
So we call it the Riff Bank. We have a Riff Bank folder. Everyone submits stuff in. The main Sean's mainly been the songwriter, but when
Hmm.
we got Neil back in the band, or when we got Neil, we have a new guitar player, Neil Tiemann. He used to play in Devil Driver.
Hmm.
The transition was just like cool, and then he just started populating that folder with riffs, and we're like, oh, songs, and riffs, and then the stuff came flowing, and then I would be listening to the tracks they submitted, that Corey submitted, and then Scott and Sean would go over that stuff and then turn out songs that they're like, okay, this is the structure that we're comfortable with. What do you guys think? And then the rest of us would work on that stuff,
Okay,
and then the
that's cool.
songs would be finalized that way.
So you guys will start with you have like a folder that you're sharing riffs out of, and then you guys how do you get together in a room and when you finally put the final song together, or do you just kind of do it all
On
remotely?
Graveside, we wrote everything and tracked everything from our respective homes, and
Hmm.
then on this one we did all the pre-production at home, and then we met up the week before Sean had to go to the studio to track drums, and
Okay.
then that was like the final, like, hey, look, we're working out these parts and how they should sound, and also getting him warmed up before he had to go through the battery of Jason Sukoff telling him to nail those parts for the record.
Do you guys like for the lyrical themes and stuff? Is that something that your vocalist just kind of handles on his own, or do you guys contribute to that at all?
Yeah, that's like his wheelhouse. So he does all the vocals and the vocal patterns.
I
And
got
then
you.
even when we have guests, like when we have the guest people to do vocals, he still
Mhm.
handles the patterns and the lyrics and what parts they're gonna do. But with Tom, he told us that this time Tom was actually more hands-on of like, hey, let's fix some of these things. I don't know if he said fix, but definitely they collaborated on the final lyrical patterns and lyrics for that song for Death's Forgotten Children.
Yeah, I was gonna say that song, "Death Forgotten Children." That's a fucking great song.
Yeah. I'm stoked how it turned out because it's like we love having other people on the records, but we don't want to like completely oversaturate it with guests. We usually have
Uh-huh.
like solo guitarists, so it's harder to get vocalists down.
How did you guys decide to do? I heard the cover you did of "Heretic Anthem" by Slipknot. How did that come about?
So we did Warp Tour. I want to say 2018, maybe 2017, but we did Warp Tour, and we were joking around about, well, what's a band we wish we could have seen on Warp Tour? Slipknot. All right, well then we're going to be playing to people that are going to this, because I grew up going to Warped Tour to see punk bands. Like that's
Hmm.
where I saw and so like I saw Under Oath there. That's funny. And then uh we were like like they we're gonna play to people that probably don't know who we are. They probably have seen the name, but they're probably not into metal. So Slipknot, everyone knows Slipknot. We'll just cover Slipknot, and then we threw it in the set, and it was a hit, and people liked it. And then we realized afterwards, people were like, "Hey, what you guys gonna track it? You guys covered it live. You gonna track it?" And I don't know why that translated that way. And then all right, so then we tracked it.
That's dope.
Yeah.
So it just kind of was one of those things that came about naturally.
Yeah, we had an EP plan. That's what ended up happening. We were going to write 2 songs and release 2 live songs, and then the label was like, uh, "Can we get something else?" And we're like, "Yeah, we can cover this. We got this ready."
Yeah. As the as you guys get out to promote the new album, are you going to be doing a lot of dates this year in Southern California, or just in the US or anything?
Yeah. So, well, we only have one SoCal date, but we are gearing up. This is my last weekend home, and then I head to my mom's next weekend to hang out, and then rehearsals follow the week after that, and then we take off for our first date in Tucson. We're doing a full U.S. tour, October, November.
Awesome.
Skipping the Pacific Northwest, unfortunately. We're trying to make something happen there in the future, but we carve across the U.S. with So This Is Suffering, All to the Grave, the Australian band. It's their first U.S. tour. Last 10 Seconds of Life is on it, opening, and then after that, we're going to South America for the first time, and
Oh,
then
wow.
we're doing a week down there, and then capping it off with Mexico, and then that's the year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What kind of as far as it's funny because I've been talking to a lot of I'm a guitar player myself, but I've been
Perfect.
talking to a lot of people who play, and a couple of people like, do you guys tote your rigs around? Like, what do you play through?
You talking about when we fly?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have to condense as much as we can. So for me, I just bring a pedal board and my basses. Like for example,
Okay.
this next tour, we have to fly as light as possible to save on costs. So I'm living out of a backpack, and then so I'm bringing my 2 basses, my cables, and my pedal board, and then Neil and Corey will be bringing their Kempers
Yeah.
and their guitars, and then their cases. They have the Enki, so they can only hold 2. So I think we're gonna risk it, and all 3 of us are not bringing backups. And then Sean's got the most. Whew, he's got cymbals, his pedals. He's got his own rack for his in-ears and for his drum triggers. And then he's got one more thing. And then his backpack. And then Scott's gonna have to fly down there with just a backpack and his own mic. I think he has a wireless mic, so he'll just have that in his backpack.
It's toughest on the drummer in that situation. It's interesting though, because like a couple years ago, you couldn't do that. In those Kempers, everyone uses those Kempers now, and I guess it makes it easier for you to do fly and touring.
Yeah, especially
Over
with
four.
multiple guitars, they have the profile. Even if it's uh like we have the backups. If they at a moment's notice, like, oh, I gotta use a different guitar. There's a profile for that guitar.
Yeah, yeah. That it sounds so amazing. Like someone, I think it was Sin was telling me the other day from Siglos about how you can like literally record your tone into it and then export it into like a USB drive and like plug it into other ones and stuff. Sounds amazing.
Yeah, we're tempted. I can't wait till like the scene is that way where it's funny because the dreaded words house kit. Drummers
Yeah.
don't want to play a house kit. But if there were Kempers in every venue, it would make it so that that's all they have to bring. A guitar player flying in, USB. That would be sick.
Yeah, I was just at the Whiskey last night and they have their house kit, and most of the bands there played on the house kit with the exception of, a couple of guys who brought like you were saying their own racks or their own cymbals and stuff.
Yeah.
But it sounded good. I mean, I can understand as a drummer though, or just as a musician, it's like you want your own gear.
Yeah, but I got comfortable. I have that pedal board, but I'm expecting to be going down to all these shows, and it's not like I'm gonna be having some pristine rental backline. I feel like I'm gonna show up and whatever band that's playing on the bill that day, whoever has the best rig is going to be the one that lets me borrow their rig, or the one that's more open about like, oh yeah, he can use my stuff. So I'm not like banking on having what I'm used to. It's just as long as I can crank it and dial in a tone, I'm happy. I'll fine. I'll live.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very diplomatic of you.
Yeah, I'm used to it. We used to play like those like old shows in the middle of nowhere, like with like the no PA, the P. And if there was an instance where Sean and I where we were playing a VFW hall with like the PA was just vocals, and I had two bass cabs at the time, so we put his triggers through one of the bass cabs.
Oh, wow.
We had to make do.
Cool. The drum triggers, huh?
Yeah. It's like, well, we got to have the bass come somewhere. That's a bass cab. Let's put them in there.
Yeah, yeah. That's ingenuity.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about the state of metal? Because I'm in my 40s, right? And I've been. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Megadeth. The first CD I ever bought was Countdown to Extinction. Well, probably the second actually after Helmet. But it's interesting to me that yeah. Meantime, yeah. So we're definitely from the same genre or the same generation, probably similar anyway. But it's cool. Like I have a son who's into metal, and it's so I really feel good about the general, the community at large, because there's kind of a new up and coming batch of kids who are like going back and getting into bands like the Deftones and Norma Jean and stuff like that. What do you feel about that? When you guys get out, do you guys have a lot of younger fans, or is it mostly the old heads, or do you see a mixture of both?
It's definitely a mixture of both. We were really surprised. I'm trying to remember if it was World War X or if it was Slow Death, where we went out. I know definitely after the pandemic it was like this, but that was for a different reason. I think it's easier to pinpoint after the pandemic. July, when we first went out to Road to Rockfest and then back, and then the tours after that, we noticed that there's that gap. There's people that discovered bands, so we met a lot of people. It's like it was their first metal show, not just them seeing us for the first time, but then we realized like for a year and a half to 2 years, there was a whole group of kids that didn't experience live music. They just like it's them getting introduced to that genre, deep diving every band they could, finding every outlet they could to like see anything they could of us talking or performing. And then finally, when things opened up, they got out there, and then they was just like, oh, wow, I didn't know this is what it was like. Oh, yeah, that's right. Because for a year and a half to 2 years, none of this was happening. That's crazy.
Yeah. I had this experience a couple years ago. I went to this show, it was Black Label Society in Utah, in Salt Lake. And the opening bands were Prong and Obituary.
Oh, shit.
And I couldn't believe it. When Obituary came on, like a bunch of like young kids came out with Obituary's hoodies and stuff. And I was just like, holy shit. I couldn't believe it.
That happened to us in 2008. We opened up for Unleashed and Obituary, and the diehard elitist kids were the 14-year-olds that just discovered death metal. And so Obituary was the best band to them. And we're like, well, you got some growing up to do because you're going to deep dive later,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just cool to see the enthusiasm for a band that's like kind of from our era with this younger new generation of fans.
Yeah. I think the streaming, it's kind of like the double-edged sword, right? Yes, it's easily accessible for everyone to find the music, but we don't get a share of it.
Yeah. I talked to a couple artists about this recently, where it's like by the time you have an audience and a label wants to look at you, you almost don't need a label. But by the same token, a label like Nuclear Blast or Roadrunner or Earache or whatever, those are labels that care deeply about their artists and like really, really go to Metal Blade, go to great lengths to like curate good metal bands and really do a lot to elevate the artists. So I guess they prove their worth. Whereas I talked to someone else a couple of days ago, this girl Nikki Stringfield, she's putting out her own stuff and she doesn't even need a label. She has a massive audience from YouTube and social media, and it's just like, and from her time playing with Iron Maidens and stuff. So
I know what you're talking about. I had the same thing with like I have a Bandcamp account because there's bands that I'll run into. It's like, oh, you're not on streaming. I have to get your music somehow.
Yeah. Well, and then it's like for the bands, you make a lot more nowadays if people buy your stuff direct. So someone it was Sin, I think, it was talking about the venue fees too. Now they charge you a percentage of merchandise when you sell in the venue for every item.
Yeah, it's nothing new to us. When we first started touring, more often than not, it was the fee is kind of like it's like giving it's like charging us for the space. Oh, you're going to use this space to sell. All right, cool. Well, then it was like 10%, maybe 15% at the most. But then after coming back, every Live Nation bought out all those venues and they upped it to like 30% now. And then there's even like the audacity if they try to do the venue sell. Oh, you can only have 3 items, and then we're going to have a person sell for you. It's like, well, first off, that person works for you, and they're not going to go out of their way to sell these items. And you also capped us off at the knees by limiting what we could have out there when we spent all this time curating all these designs to have like something for everyone to buy something. Even if they don't have enough to buy a hoodie, they can get a shirt, or they can get a hat, or they can get trickling down,
Yeah.
and then they take a huge cut of it, and it's like, oh, it's like we don't want to combat it by raising the prices, because then the fans are already paying so much money to get a ticket in the first place, to pay all those fees to have the convenience of buying that ticket online, and then they get there and then they're paying overpriced drinks, and we don't even get a cut of that. They're like
Yeah.
they're punishing the fans, and then inadvertently we start getting punished. And it's like, well, we're strategically trying to find the venues that don't do that.
It's tough being an artist, man. Like it's no love. Like you got to scrape together money. Yeah. So I'm always trying to point out, like, people buy direct.
Yeah. We're trying to offset costs. So like we know the game, we've been in it, so we're being smart about how we maneuver these things, so that way we still come out ahead, because we have to. We're not losing. We're not doing the tour at a loss. We always come back with money, and so even like we'll still do the tours in the van. We'll lighten crew. We share with other bands. We share transportation when we can. When we go to Europe, we try to share as much gear and the transportation, so that everyone, like, we're not just trying to make money ourselves. We want everyone on the package to go home with money too. So there's those bands that like, oh, we don't make money on the road. It's like, well, you got to be smarter and more hands-on. We're self-managed, so we're in our own books, making sure that every penny and dime is accounted for.
That's smart. And it's rare too. It's so I think it's tough for artists to get into that headspace, right? And that's why they outsource it to like a label or a manager or whatever.
Yeah.
But no one's gonna care as much about it as you.
Yeah. You think the guy that's taking 10 to 15% is gonna care if he doesn't spend your whole budget?
Yeah, or if he accidentally takes more than 10%.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys now owe money on transportation. Well,
yeah.
Nah, we're it's our bread and butter, so we got to be involved.
That's cool. And the game has changed so much too. Like I remember talking to artists who were like, yeah, when I was on a label, they would fly us out to these like elaborate dinners and like these, and then we realized we're paying for all this. They were putting it all on our tab, So it's the rock star life might not be as glamorous as some people hope, but if you take care, cross your T's and dot your I's, you can be successful.
Yeah, we all came from a working background. We all had jobs immediately after high school, and we all, I think that's what it was. That if you look at every band member that's been in this band that's stayed, and then for a long period of time, we've all carried on some way of work, so that way we don't have to hire those people out. I don't have to hire a guitar tech. We don't have to hire a drum tech.
That's cool. What one thing I've been curious about, and you may or may not be able to speak to this, is where did your name come from? This is an interesting name.
I think so. What Scott had said, Scott and Sean have a mutual friend. Her name's Karen. And I think that they saw the word in a book and they pointed. I was like, that's an interesting word. And then I I forget what book. I wish I remembered what book it was, where they got it from, what reading material they got it from. But then we ended up finding out that it's Latin for executioner, along those lines.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's funny when we toured the obituary and they said, "Oh, originally it used to be executioner," and we're like, "That's so fucking funny."
that's our
so
name too.
so our early merch had executioner on it. So, but that's really what it is.
That's so cool because I was like in my head, I'm like I'm thinking of a combination of carnival and effects. I'm like it's like
Yeah.
carnival effects or then carnivore
Mhm.
and effects, and so it's interesting. Like I love etymology and like just the breakdown of words and stuff because a lot of English words come from Latin words anyway. So it's a cool it's a cool word, and it's
Yeah,
like it's rare that a band has a name that's unique like that. That's a single word. You know, you got these bands with their like as you will and you'll know us by the Trail of Dead or whatever.
Oh,
Like
I
these
know that band.
bands.
Yeah, that's a cool band.
Yeah, they just have like a long name. So it's I like the compactness of it and the uniqueness, which is rare in this world. You know.
Yeah, that was a whole era. We called them the sentence fragment
Yeah.
band. Parsons got all the girls,
Right.
Yeah.
Was it a
See you next
plane
Tuesday.
taken for stars or like?
Yep. The
Yeah.
number 12 looks like you.
Yes. Yes. Man, it's crazy to me too how there's like almost like a lost like what you just said totally triggered this like opening of I thought I started thinking of bands like Cephalic Carnage
Oh yeah.
and these bands that behold the archetype, and there was a lot of these like or the Octopus, sorry.
Mhm.
There's all these a lot of these Horse the band, a lot of these like metal I Wrestled a Bear Once,
My favorite is Embrace the End. That band was
Embrace
sick.
the End.
Yeah, they were sick
That's a
from
great
Sacramento.
name. Yeah, but there's like this whole era of bands that I almost forgot about that are kind of crossing over between like prog and jazz and like extreme metal. Do you guys I mean you guys obviously play heavy stuff. Do you guys ever think about branching out or let me ask you this. What do you listen to or what influences would you call out that are not heavy?
Um, so like all the punk stuff I listen to, none of the other guys listen to punk. I think Corey does. Corey listens to a lot of 311.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. And then I'm trying to think like what's something along the lines that I like.
That's so funny. I met this girl last night and I was like, "What's your name?" And she's like, "Peanut." And I was like, like 311? Like the guy from 311?
Neil listens to a lot of Americana stuff. And he's got like a blues kind of country background that because he's a good old Texas boy. And then trying to think when I met Sean, he was into a lot of like that like yeah, we were into like Glassjaw and Slipknot and stuff, but he liked all that like Jimmy Eat World, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember kind of like it was kind of radio music, and then I don't know, like I grew up on a lot of different stuff. I kept branching out. That's what it was. I think like right now it's just I listen to a lot of Red Fang right now.
Oh, great band.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a band last night. I went to a show last night for a band called Kill Devil Hill, and they had it like some of the opening band. You know how the whiskey is; they always have
Is that
like
Rex's band?
Rex was in it. Yeah, he's not anymore. But
Oh, okay.
Vinny Appice was in it too.
Oh, nice.
For a minute. But the main guy, Mark Zavon, is kind of like now he's got the bass player from former bass player from Five Finger Death Punch.
Oh yeah.
And then Johnny Kelly, who played in Typo Negative and
oh wow,
he was on drum, but he wasn't on. Johnny wasn't there last night. They had another fill-in drummer, but one of the opening bands was kind of like a stoner doom thing, and they were sick.
Nice. I like you said, stoner doom. There's a good one, Mogwai. I love Mogwai.
Yeah. Like I think I thought of that because of Red Fang, but like a lot of that, like
the drony stuff. Yeah.
Mogwai is like that's another band I haven't thought about for a while. Russian Circles and those kind of like instrumental bands. Mm-hmm. Did you ever get into ISIS?
I did, but it was like too late. It's because they announced that they were done, and I was like, oh, what? And I was like, I always thought it was one of those bands. Like, I'm gonna eventually see them, and then I'll get into them. And then they broke up. I was like, no. And then I went and bought the CDs. So it was the same thing with Shai Halud when they broke up. I was like, oh, I missed the party.
Yeah, yeah. Same thing with Botch. I was like really stoked. Do you listen to Botch at all?
I haven't. No.
That's a band that uh similar to like Modern Life is War. Like they're one of those heavier bands that kind of like in the late 90s, early 2000s. I feel like they were almost like the Dillinger Escape Plan of like the Pacific Northwest
Awesome. All
to
right.
some degree. It's like heavy like timing change and like, but they were like one of those bands that I think is super influential that kind of like went under the radar. Like a lot of their guitar style is stuff that bands like Norma Jean and like Under Oath kind of like borrowed from a little bit. But that's a great band. If they just reunited, is why I thought of it too. They're doing some shows.
I'll have to
I think they
scope
have
it
an
out.
LA show at the Fonda. So, but yeah, I could sit here and talk about like bands and stuff. Like dive into that whole world all day. Do you
Yeah.
have a hard stop at 12:30?
Nope. Nope.
Oh, okay, cool, man. Yeah, I don't want to like keep you on the line if you don't, because some people are like jumping from one interview to the next.
That was Wednesday. So no, this is my last interview for today, and then I have another one on Monday, and I think I'm done. And then it's just focusing on rehearsal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the record comes out. When is what date is it? Is it the 29th?
October 6th.
October 6th. My bad. I'm getting. So in the meantime, are you guys releasing any more singles? Do you have any stuff you're doing on the build up?
We have another single to release, and then I don't know if we're releasing one right when the tour's. No, we're not. We only have one more to release, and then that's it until we play live. Well, the record will be out, so it doesn't matter. But we got one more to go.
Awesome. When you guys get out, are you excited to get out again? Have you toured since the pandemic ended, or done a lot of many shows since it?
Yeah, luckily I think it took off. We did so we had a Dahlia tour planned the fall of 2020, and then it ended up coming back to coming to fruition 2021. So we did a tour with them, and from then on it was just like game on. And I think the only territory it took for us forever to get back to was Europe, because I feel like we've only been back once, and the rest has just been US. Canada, we had a couple times we couldn't get in because of strict hoops to jump through, and then we went to Australia. So I feel like last year was definitely our last full year, and then this year we only have 3 tours. Yeah.
Do you guys? You mentioned something that I think is an interesting subject to touch on. Like, as far as like the getting into other countries and stuff. Do you guys have any problems now, like post pandemic, with like vaccine laws or like any of that kind of stuff, like getting into different countries, or does any of that factor in?
We were fine when it was here's our paperwork, and here, like when we gave them advance notice. It was just Canada was the only one that gave us a hard time, because they told us, oh, you need to show up 3 days before your entry date and test. And like, we can't do that. Like, we're on the road. We're going to be we're going to be like way too far in another state. We can't drive to the border in Toronto, take a test, and then go back to, like, I think we were in New York at the time. No, it wasn't New York, but like still we were like a few states over. We're like, we can't do that. So that's why we didn't cancel those 2 shows. So that's why we canceled. We couldn't make it. It's like physically showing up to the border to take a test and then come back and then wait for the results and then come back when we're supposed to come back. No, we can't do that. But everywhere else we were fine. We were even in Australia. We had 5 shows, and the first 2 shows, they still had the restrictions. And then when we were going to the airport for the 3rd show, it was just funny that like we walked in and there was the whole thing of like, present your paperwork, wear the mask. And then the 3rd day, it was instantly across the country. It's all open. We're like, whoa, all right. So it was funny to see that, of like the specific lines, and then it was just a normal airport again.
It just flipped.
Yeah.
That whole thing. I mean, I don't want to go too far down that wormhole, but it's like there was just so many things where I was like scratching my head, like, this does not make sense.
It was definitely like at wherever you were's discretion. So we had venues even in that first full US tour that was like, we have to check your status. You have to adhere to this protocol. And then the next day it was just a regular venue. We don't care. I was like, okay.
Yeah, it was like that's a good point. It was like everywhere you go had different rules and you had to just kind of like feel it out where it's like, for example, down here in California, the laws or they were super strict about like wearing a mask at the store or whatever, like all that kind of stuff. Where I would go up to Utah to see my mother, and they're kind of like, yeah, wear a mask if you want. We don't care. Like we're not. If you want, wear one. Don't. If you don't want to, like we
I
don't
totally,
care.
I totally get it though. Like in an area like that, like when everyone's more outdoors and everyone is more spaced out, yeah, of course it's going to be a little more relaxed. When we were in New York, you're like, dude, there are bodies stacked on bodies of people living in like the closest quarters possible.
Yeah.
No wonder every restaurant was like, you can't sit and eat here. Everything to go. I
Yeah.
was like, I get it. All right.
I mean, but even that got stupid where it was to the point where it's like, oh, you have to wear a mask before you go in, but then you can take it off while you're eating. Like COVID's not going to get you while you're eating.
That's why they said get out. They're like, we don't even know.
It's just like get out.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. We'll just go eat on the street, you know?
Yeah. I'm definitely glad all of that has come to an end. But I still see people outside walking around wearing masks, and I'm just like, do you wear a condom when you're alone in bed? Like that's a weird level of like disconnect that I just don't get. But anyway.
Yeah.
Do you have is there anything else you guys are promoting or anything else that you'd want to talk about today, man?
We have all our merch is available at Indie Merch Store and Empiricon. All right, so in the US, it's an Indie Merch Store. We have a contest going on. If you spend, I think up to $10, you qualify for a gift card. I think it might be $100, but we have tiers of giveaways. At the end of every month, we give away a gift card, and then right before the record comes out, we're going to give away a PS5.
Oh,
so
wow.
everyone that's buying from the Indie Merch Store has a chance. It's like an entry, you know.
Yeah.
And then we're going to announce that winner pretty soon. And then for everywhere else, it's Empiricon. And then we finally have a dedicated Australian online merch store. And that's available. I'm trying to remember the name. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name, but we have a merch store in Australia now. So
but if you go, it's all linked on your socials, right? If someone goes like your website or your Facebook page.
Yeah. We're promoting it every week.
See, and that makes sense to me. The incentivize people to do that because it's like, yeah, fans, go buy direct from the band.
Yeah.
Cut the middleman out. Don't.
And those are places we vetted. We picked, if you really want the quality merch, those are the ones that we vetted so that's the best representation of our printed material. Because if you can get merch from everywhere else that's had it, but if you want quality merch, Indie Merch and Empiricon, and then I wish I had the name right now.
The other one.
I think it's like Rising. No, not Rising Merch. No.
Just go to Carnifex Facebook or go to Carnifex. What is it? Carnifex.com.
It's carnifexmetal.com.
Carnifexmetal.com and buy from there rather than
the link is definitely there. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't buy from the guys. Whoa.
What happened?
Oh shit.
I'm still here.
Yeah. I hit some button and I thought that I closed my browser.
Part of California you from?
What's that?
What part of California are you in?
I live out in it's like Agora, Calabasas.
Okay.
So I'm kind of out in
where's that at?
What's that?
I don't know where that is.
So do you know where Woodland Hills is?
I think so.
In the valley, the San Fernando Valley. So like if you're on the 101, like right, like there's LA and then there's the valley north of it. And I'm like just to the like northwest of Woodland Hills, like the northwest side of the valley.
Okay.
So it's like on the way to Ventura, basically. I'm like right on the border of Ventura County.
So are you past San Dimas and Silmar?
Other way.
Okay. Now I know
west side. Yeah. So like out here in the west, so like
you're closer to Pomona.
Well, Pomona is like more inland.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm like just north of Malibu, basically.
Oh yes, I don't know that area at all. So
the canyon.
I go. Yeah. Okay. I drive through Latuna Canyon to get to Sun City. Okay. And that's all I know.
I got you. Hey, did you grow up in Southern California?
Yeah, San Diego, born and raised.
Okay. Yeah, my brother used to live down in San Diego in Vista.
That's exactly there. I'm from Escondido.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Yeah. So one of my best friends is from Encinitas, and we used to go down there and try to surf all the times.
Yeah.
And one of my buddies got stung by a stingray at a beach called Pipes.
Yeah. That's funny. Oh man.
But yeah,
That's cool.
out where I'm at, it's more. I feel like it's more like San Diego. It's kind of like suburban, like upper middle class, like strip mall-y, where I like to go into like the dirty city, like the actual like. I was talking to this guy yesterday or a couple days ago, Sin from Ministry, and he grew up. He's born in East LA, and it's like to me that's like there's like the West Side, and then there's like that's like real LA. That's like where there's like generations of families, that's like not Hollywood
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And
I
then you
got
have the
cousins.
West. Yeah, the West Side is like Santa Monica and like Hollywood and West Hollywood and all that stuff. And I'm kind of like on the west side of like the San Fernando Valley. So
Nice.
there's my son, just to give you an example of the like. And I'm not, I live in like a condo and stuff, but my son's band played their Battle of the Bands, and one of the judges at their Battle of the Bands was Jose Pasillas from Incubus.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's funny.
that's how bougie our neighborhood is.
Yeah, yeah. I grew up in the suburbs as well, and my parents did live downtown for a while. But when I was born, they're like, "Now let's get out of here. If we're gonna raise a family, we're gonna get it away from downtown." So we carved our way north to Esco. So we lived in Poway for a while, and then Esco. But it's funny that you say that we had an incident like that. I was in jazz band in high school. Then we did a fun swing band stuff for fun, and we would play parties. And we played one of my friends' aunt's houses, and she was more downtown, like a suburb more downtown San Diego. And it happened to be across the street from Sonny from POD's house.
Oh, dope.
And that was the same thing. We're playing, and he's just like, oh, you guys are musicians. My neighbor's a musician. And then we go and meet him. We're like, what the? This is weird.
I just saw them like the end of last year with Ginger.
Oh, yeah.
I was like fucking impressed with POD. Like I was like,
Yeah.
because I'm not a big fan of POD. I was there to see Ginger, and we ended up staying, and like I was like, wow. I forgot. I was like, I totally forgot how many like hit songs POD had too.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're dope, and then they have the drummer from Suicide Silence now
Yeah,
too.
Alex. Yeah. I was gonna say, I was like, did you notice who's beating those skins? That's funny.
Yeah. That's another reason I was like, damn, these
Yeah.
guys are tearing it up.
Yeah, they had throughout the years. I remember when I stopped actively listening to them, and then another hit of theirs would come out. I'm like, they still got it.
Yeah, because so many bands from that era, like Garza just had the guy from Head PE on his show, and those first couple Head PE records are good, but there's so many bands from that era, like the Limp Bizkit Corn Wave. You'll appreciate this. We had a pet name for bands. We call them Dun Dun Wee bands.
That's pretty funny. Yeah.
All the post Corn bands are all Dun Dun Wee, like all the riffs. So there's like I kind of would put POD and like Head PE and Limp Bizkit and all those bands in the Dun Dun Wee category. But POD is one of the bands I would put in there too, and it's like their music kind of like stands the test of time. I think a little better than maybe some of the other ones.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, I think there's bands like Deftones and stuff like. I totally forgot what else I was going to ask you. I had a question for you.
We went on a tangent.
Yeah, you mentioned POD and it set me off.
That was one of those bands. You just said Deftones in high school. Like I was probably like an elitist in those genres too. I was like, thrash is the best. Now melodic death metal is the best. Where everyone was listening to Deftones and it was on the radio, and I just didn't like it and I wasn't into it. And then when I joined Carnifex, and Corey and Scott would play their records all the time, and eventually it was like it wore down on me, and I was like, this is actually pretty good. I missed out. I didn't like it. It's either I didn't get it. That's what people say. You don't get it.
Yeah.
Or it was just the people that listened to it at the time I didn't like. And so I was like, well, I don't like what they like.
Man, I had that I have that same like trajectory with the bands like U2 and Depeche Mode and stuff. Like
That's
when I was
funny.
a kid, I had this like total moment a couple of months ago. Well, when I saw Metallica, because when I was in junior high, I like was a Metallica Pantera kid, and I grew up in Utah, so it was all Mormons, and all the Mormons loved U2. It's like I hated U2 when I was a kid.
Yeah,
I hate U2, and now it's like I go to a Metallica show and there's families there, and I can stand U2 now. I guess they have some good stuff, but it's funny how that shapes your viewpoint.
Yeah, we just have to do a little bit of growing up and experiencing the world, and we realize, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I just love music too. So it's
Yeah,
like if someone's doing something that's cool, like I'll get over the judgmental parts of it. Like,
yeah. I'm always on the hunt for the riff. Like you said, you're a
yeah,
guitar player. I'm always looking for that riff. If there's a good riff in there, I can tolerate everything. I can get through a song that probably has only one good 5 second section. If that section rips, I'll tolerate the rest of the song.
really.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
riff is so key though.
yeah,
That's such a. I think it was. I saw something recently where they were talking about rock music. They're like a good rock song has to have a good riff, and I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
wow, that's so true.
Yeah, because
And
then they'll play it to death.
right, but then the bands that really have elevated throughout the years. It's like for thrash, for example, it's like the big five, the big four is like Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth, maybe Testament.
Yeah. I
Um,
don't know why they're not up there. Like they're that's a band that's withstood the test of time, and they got heavier in the '90s.
Suicidal too is another band that should be in that pool because
Mhm.
like I saw a thing with Mike Muir the other day where he was talking about how it was like an old video of Suicidal from like the 90s, and he was talking about them being censored because of their name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's a trip. Like if you Google suicidal tendencies, it gives you like a suicidal hotline, like a hotline number.
Oh,
Like
oh, yeah,
if
yeah,
you're
yeah.
having
Oh,
thoughts,
man.
call this number. So it was interesting to me to think that like, wow, suicidal's music, like Lights Camera Revolution and like How Will I Laugh Till Tomorrow When I Can't Smile Today, like, and even Art of Rebellion, like those records are classic records, but like they don't get talked about in the same way that Master Puppets or like Rust in Peace does.
Yeah, yeah. And they also branched out. I remember they were writing so much music at the time. I remember I bought 2 Infectious Grooves records because I was like, oh, it's those guys. Oh, these guys are rip, and this music's sick.
Yeah, that's another band that like
Mhm.
that Groove Family Psycho record. Who Brooks Wackerman is?
No.
So Brooks Wackerman is the drummer now for Avenged Sevenfold,
Oh, wow.
but that's another band that I just recently kind of like same thing we were talking about where I was like, I don't like that, and then I
Yeah, yeah,
finally
yeah.
figured it out. But Brooks was in Infectious Grooves on that Groove Family Psycho record when he was 14 years old. The
Dang.
drumming on that record was done by a 14-year-old. If you've ever listened to it, but
Oh, I have. I feel like someone told me that, but I didn't remember the name, and I forgot about the fact. But yeah, it's crazy.
and then he played for Bad Religion for a while after that, and then now he's in Avenged Sevenfold. But yeah, another
That's
band.
cool. I love those trajectories. I love seeing where people go.
Yeah, and Infectious, like suicide. That's a whole other aspect of it that I didn't even think about. The suicidal
Yeah.
thing. It's like the Infectious Grooves records
Mhm.
are incredible too. Well, man, I like we're just kind of shooting the shit now. Like I don't want to keep you on too long if you got stuff to do. But it's been a cool conversation, and
Yeah, it's been great. I'm stoked that like I wore this because then it's like, oh man, we related. So no, I
that
just
is fucking amazing.
yeah, yeah. I just have rehearsing to do after this, and then I mean, I live in a house, so I got to clean it up. So
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I got up this morning and it was a little I was a little late to rise because I had some drinks last night at the
oh,
Hill Devil Hill show. So
yeah, yeah.
I'm behind on my chores.
There you go. No,
But
this is
hey,
cool. This is awesome.
yeah, man, thank you for stopping in, and please come through again, man.
Mhm.
When you guys are like ready to launch a tour, or
Yeah.
you got a new single out. The album comes out October 6th.
Yep, yep. Our last show will be November 12th in LA.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I will be there.
Awesome.
Necromantium is the name of the record, right?
Yep. Comes out
Yeah, and
October 6th.
that fucking track, I keep forgetting the name. Death's Forgotten Children.
Mhm.
Check it
And
out.
we're playing 4 tracks. One of them we played on the last tour, and then the title track, and then two different tracks on the next
That's
tour.
that's got to be tough. Like when you get to the point that you guys are at, where you have like a discography to pull from, like putting together a set list. Do you guys
Yeah.
mix it up a lot, or do you play pretty much the same set list through your tour?
Well, the 2 staples that are never going to get taken out of the set list is Hell Chose Me and Light of My Face, because those are those are like
What fans
those are the
wanna hear.
hits. That's the fan favorites. So all we do is just change up when we play them, you know. So, but we have to, one of the things we try to do that we started doing ever since Die Without Hope was every subsequent tour we're trying to cycle in one of the new songs so that we eventually have played the new record. And it's also, we don't want to do the same set from tour to tour, so that way it encourages people. It's like, well, if you saw us last tour and you heard one song from the record that you like, there's gonna be a different song from that record on the next tour.
Yeah.
So like we're playing Dark Days on the next tour, on this next tour. So then when we come back to this, when we do the next stateside tour, it'll be a different song from Die Without Hope,
Dope.
which will probably be the title track, you know.
But you guys will be in LA on the November 12th, you said?
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Do you know
I'm
what
gonna have
venue you guys are playing?
Yes. It starts with a B. It starts with a B.
Belasco.
Yes, Belasco.
I will be there for sure.
Awesome. Hell yeah.
Everybody check out the record. It's out October 6th through Nuclear Blast, right?
Mhm. Yep. And then the tour starts October 10th.
Tour
I think the
starts
first show is
10th.
October 11th in Tucson.
Awesome. And you guys
Yeah.
are going nationwide, right? Across this U.S.
Yeah, except the Pacific Northwest. I'm sorry.
The Northwest, y'all are gonna have to wait, or you're gonna have to book travel down here somewhere.
Hell yeah. Cool, man. This is great.
Thanks, Fred, man. Appreciate it. Like I said, come back through, and looking forward to seeing you guys out on the road.
Perfect. Take it easy, Dustin.
Take care, brother. All right, y'all. That is it for today. We got that was a great conversation with Fred Calderon, bass player for Carnifex, who I learned today the name means executioner. It's Latin for executioner. Yeah, you hear a name like that, Carnifex. I'm like, oh, it's like carnival effects. Like I think of like, clown paint and shit. And then there's like, oh, maybe it's like meat, like carnivore effects. But the Latin root of carnivore, I'm sure, has something to do with, like we were talking about the etymology and all the language and everything. Anyway, now I'm just rambling. Thanks for tuning in. Big props to Fred and the crew, and we will see you next week. Actually, before I sign off here, let me give you a quick. We got a bunch of stuff booked next week already, and some new stuff in the pipeline. So let me kind of like just give you a quick rundown of our guests next week, because we got some good ones. So next week on Monday, we have Serena Cherry of the band Svalbard coming in. Let me make sure I'm pretty sure that's Monday. Let me make sure. Yeah, Monday, the 25th of September. So Monday, we got Serena Cherry of Svalbard. Tuesday, we got a double whammy for you. We got Steve Zing, former Sam Hain, Danzig bassist. And then we got Dave McNally of Derision Cult. So 2 double whammy for you on Tuesday, the 26th. And then Wednesday, the 27th, we have Igor Amadeus Cavalera. That's not Max Cavalera's brother. That's Max's son. And they have a band together called Go Ahead and Die. Great stuff. So it'll be interesting to talk to him as well. The son of heavy metal royalty, obviously, with Max Cavalera from Sepultura and Soulfly and Nail Bomb. So thanks for tuning in, y'all. And keep it brutal.